Unbelievable. Bob, I've been throwing out my questions. We're about to break and come back and go to calls, but so much is happening in the economy, and you're a guy, for those that don't know who you are out there, a lot of news stations who have just made hundreds and hundreds of accurate forecasts and predictions about the economy with stunning accuracy. What is most important right now in the economy? What's some of the other news that people should know about the direction of the economy and where it's going?
Well, I think coming up in July, they're going to have a second quarter earnings, and they're not going to be very good. And I think that before the month is over, that the stock market will start down. And whether it'll go down to 6,600 at this time during the summer remains to be seen. But I think there's a good shot that we could go back to 6,600 on the Dow in the fall and test it. At the same time, I see that every time gold sticks its head up, they try to knock it down. But the physical market keeps on coming through. And as long as that continues, gold will remain relatively strong.
All right, let's get more into that after the quick break. TheInternationalForecaster.com is his website. Get a free copy of the newsletter there, either the e-letter or the hard copy. And our websites are prisonplanet.tv, Infowars.com, Infowars.net, prisonplanet.com. And, of course, theobamadeception.net, the new blockbuster film we released. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Bob Chapman on this Friday edition.
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done's been right.
Bob Chapman, you got cut off by the break there, getting into where you see gold going. You did predict the last 3 ups and downs of the stock market with amazing accuracy. You've done a great job predicting gold. You said you thought it would go up to 960. It did, and past that. You said they'd probably push it back down a few more times throughout the summer, but you and many others are predicting it's going to go way up. What, into the fall, winter of next year? Break down, looking at the tea leaves there, Bob Chapman, and doing this for 50 years, what you think is going to happen with gold and silver in the short term and the long term.
Well, I think we have a good shot at going through 1,000 before the year is out. And if I had to pick a time, I would say October would be a good one, or in December for that matter. And so that's the way I think it's going to go, in spite of the inner workings and manipulation of the Working Group in Financial Markets, which is a legal entity within government that does 24 hours a day manipulate all markets. And that's another thing that will be exposed in the audit of the Federal Reserve, just what they're doing in these markets. I mean, this legislation is going to be devastating. It's got to pass because we can cut them off at the pass. It is, you just have no idea how important it is. I call it the most important legislation in the last 100 years. And incidentally, you were going to play a tape by Ron Paul. You said you had a 2 or 3 minute piece you wanted to play.
Yes, we do have that. I want to get to that after we take a few calls here, Bob,
Okay.
because I've got time today, if you can do it, to hold a little bit into the next hour before our in-studio guests show up to get into the forced medicating of the water supply. But, yes, that's going to come up after we take some calls. But specifically, getting back to H.R. 1207 with over 230 sponsors, last time I checked, it's going to the floor in the near future. Incredible debates there. Then it's probably going to pass the House. There's a good chance of that. And then going to the Senate. But as Ron Paul has said, we win either way because if they fight being audited, if they continue to say they're above the law and secret, that only educates more people. 5 years ago, almost no one knew the Federal Reserve was private or even knew what the Federal Reserve was. Now the general public knows these are the bad guys. These are the offshore banks. And so any way you cut it, the fact that they're the illegitimate financial government has come out. And now, like you said, they're trying to fail forward by becoming the entire government overall and bringing us under international control through this new Bank of the World that Time Magazine and Newsweek and the Wall Street Journal are all pushing. So there's no more denial about the fact that there's offshore banks trying to set up a world financial dictatorship with physical backing. The only issue is, will we have a fighting spirit and stand up and say no to this attempted takeover? You know, people say, well, they're not going to pass it, or oh, they're going to have what they want or they're invincible. No, they're not. Look how far we've come. I mean, Bob, what has it been like for you, 45, 50 years with G. Edward Griffin and others, an icon in fighting this, and to now see the type of traction we've got, but at the same time to see so many snot-nosed people who don't like the New World Order, but saying there's nothing we can do. I mean, why don't they have a fighting spirit?
I think it's just human nature. There are certain types of personality out there. I get letters from these people, and I answer them all. And I'll say, look, if you want to give up, why don't you just go commit suicide? I mean, to make it simpler. Of course, I don't think anybody does that, but I think they get the point. And, you know, I am so, you know, I've been saying this over and over again on all the radio stations I've been on for the last 3 months, pushing Ron Paul's agenda in relation to the Federal Reserve. Even if we had lost, which it doesn't look like we're going to, we got a shot at winning. But even if we had lost, there are millions and millions of people who now know who the enemy is and what they're up to.
Absolutely, and this is a process. The globalists, it's taken them hundreds of years to build this. In just a few decades, we are starting to tear it down. So they're trying to build it, and as they're building it, we're busy removing bricks to where what they've built is a dysfunctional mess. It's not going to work. We're winning. I mean, resistance and the will to fight is the key component to victory, is it not, Bob?
It certainly is, and that's why I have kept for 50 years, next year it'll be 50 years, I would not give up. And, you know, Ed Griffith was in the same boat along with Alan Stang and Anthony J. Hilder, and some of our pals are now deceased, but we're going to win. I can feel it. I know. 3 weeks ago at the Bilderberger meeting, as you know, they said, tops in the agenda, we think this thing is getting out of control. We better haul it in here before we're hung out to dry. Well, the problem for them is they can't haul it in here. They can't do it. They're going to have to play it out to the end, and the end for them is at the end of a rope.
Amazing. Well, it is us or them, ladies and gentlemen. Bob, I wanted to bring this up and then go to calls finally, because every few weeks I see an article about man arrested at Best Buy or man arrested at Walmart or man arrested at drugstore for trying to pay for something with a $2 bill. $2 bills are Federal Reserve issued, quote, U.S. Mint issued with the Declaration of Independence on the back. And the public is so ignorant and the police are so ignorant, they will still take you to jail and charge you. Usually it gets dropped down the line. But for those that don't know, it's free association, free barter. If you're, you know, it's against the law to copy U.S. currency. The Federal Reserve took that over and does that. So they're really counterfeiters. But if you counterfeit their counterfeit currency, you go to jail because that debases and devalues the currency, what the private Federal Reserve is doing themselves. But if I wanted to go out and strike, say, 1,000, coins with my face on them or your face or the Easter Bunny's face on them, that's my right. And if somebody wants to barter and I go, hey, silver's $15 an ounce, you want to give me $15 worth of products for this, that would then happen. And for those that don't know, cities and counties and all over the U.S. for hundreds of years have barter, have local notes. The feds are now going after those groups, so we see them trying to, as they debase the Federal Reserve note, I think getting ready for inflation and that money to be discredited. Like you said, currency controls, not just outside currency controls, trying to trade your dollars as they are imploded in the future, but also where people can't, I'll trade in silver, my own silver, even if it's old U.S. silver, or I'll trade in gold, whether it's Kruger Rands or British Sovereigns or American Eagles, or our local town will do script, that's accepted at the auto repair place and the beauty salon and at the grocery store. I mean, there's already hundreds of towns and cities doing this. It's not illegal, but the feds, it says, Asheville man charged an alleged Liberty Dollar fraud scheme. They were advertising all over TV and radio. They were mainstream. They were just saying alternative currency system, totally legal. And the feds raided them and people said, well, we believe this is legal. The news, because it's legal to have your own alternate currencies as long as you're not saying you're the Federal Reserve or the Treasury, and they weren't. And I said, no, folks, they had the gold and silver on hand for their certificates as well, and the feds aren't charging. They didn't have enough gold and silver. They stole that, It was now in the indictments, they admit, saying this is counterfeit. How is it counterfeit, Bob, to have free association and make your own coins out of a precious metal and sell them, whether it's commemorative or whatever?
Well, it isn't, and I think when you see the court cases that the government will lose, if the government does not lose, you'll know that the courts are rigged, because it's not illegal. It's legal. The Berkshire dollar is a good example. It's been in existence for a long time in Massachusetts, particularly Western Massachusetts, and you go and buy a dollar's worth, and you pay 97 cents or 95 cents for the Berkshire dollar. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they want to shut all these things down because they don't want anybody competing with the Federal Reserve notes, whether it's in script like Berkshire or whether it's in coins that Alex and Bob made up.